Okay, folks, welcome to episode 16 of the Nice and Nasty podcast. And I'm delighted to have back an old mate who has been a friend of the channel for many, many years. He's an Atari fan, and I've even put my Atari t shirt on just for you, Squire. It's Mr. Junosix, Jamie Hamshere. How are you, mate? It's been a while.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I'm thinking the last time we spoke was probably about 10 years ago, wasn't it? I
Whoa,
think the last time we
that's interesting you say that because usually when people talk about things that happened in the past, they always underestimate. But you've actually overestimated. It was actually 8 years ago.
Was it?
Eight
Oh,
years ago,
okay.
which is
Right.
still a bloody long time.
It's a
And I
long
hope
time
we
though, isn't
don't
it?
leave it as long because if we leave it as long, I will be 64 years old the next time we do one of
Easy.
these things, which is quite frankly absolutely terrifying. I always remember hearing that Beatles song when I'm 64, and as a sort of 17-year-old, that was like hundreds of years away, and here we are. I'm now staring down the face at 60, which is terrifying.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm 44 in May, and it's like, yeah, when you're 17, that's old, And it's like, I don't feel old. Do you feel old? Are you looking forward to? I mean, 64, is quite a cool number. Commodore 64, Nintendo 64. So that's quite an achievement, really. I think.
Do I feel old? No, I don't. I mean, always I look at myself. I've got a bit fatter and whatever. But no, I don't. I mean, from an intellectual point of view, I'm still a bloody twat. I still act like I'm 20. Hence the reason that you're on this. We're going to talk about computer games or what have you. But no, I mean, it's age is quite literally a number. I mean, it
Yeah.
annoys me when I hear of people who are a lot younger and you say, what did you do with yourself? Oh, I used to play football, I used to run, but don't do it now because my knees are shot. I mean, I took up a martial art 2 years ago, and I'm pants. I mean, I've got my test on Saturday for brown belt. Um, I'm still trying to not push boundaries. That sounds really, really twatish. But as long as there's life in the old body, I'll still keep trying to do things to, you know,
Still be active. That's the key thing, isn't it? Really,
exactly.
just gotta keep on going.
That,
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to write themselves off, and they're like, okay, I've reached this age now. Everything that I could have done, I should have done by this age, and there's no point. And it's like,
yeah,
that's
I
not a
know.
good
I
way
mean,
to.
I read one of the best quotes is, "You never ever regret what you've done, but you always regret what you haven't done." And I think that's
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm attempting to learn the guitar. I mean, I've got a mate who plays in a rock band. He's been playing guitar for all his life, and he sold me a guitar about 2 years ago. And I started, in fact, I'm going to blame COVID, but I started going along to a guitar club, and just obviously to learn the guitar, and it was just a room full of maybe 20 odd people, and he would show you the chords, right? That's A, that's blah blah blah, E, whatever it was, and then he would put on a tune, and we would all just kind of strum along. And it was great because when I was strumming along to like Paolo Nutini and all this kind of stuff in Deacon Blue, I thought I was the dog's bollocks. And it was only when I went home and did it myself without music, I realised how utter shit I was. I was like, oh,
Sorry about the crash.
it's all
Yeah,
kicking
it's
off.
sorry about the crash there. That was my cat just knocking my something off my laptop bag there. Apologies. Um, yeah, it's like when you're singing along in the car to a song, you're like, I sound amazing. But it's like if you just like turn down the volume on the radio, I'm sure you're kind of atrocious.
I
But
have
that's
a mate
you know,
actually. I have a mate actually. He just was it 2 years ago? I think it was. He his grandfather passed away, and there was a guitar that, do you want this? So he got this guitar. He'd never played a guitar in his life, and he just started watching YouTube videos. And he now goes along to these like open mic nights, and he sings, and it's like
brilliant.
he's not particularly good, but you know what? Absolutely fair play.
He does it.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like YouTube, it's all on there, isn't it? People kind of like teaching you. I've got a guitar. Like musically, I'm more of like a synth player, but I've got
Yeah.
a guitar and massive Smiths fan, and there's like loads of people teaching how to play like this charming man and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I like pick it up and have a noodle every now and again. It's good fun.
Talking to synths, actually, I was Yeah, so I got there was a thing popped up on Facebook, whatever it was, or one of these little shorts, videos, short things that pop up, and it was a guy saying he just bought this synthesizer from Aldi's. No, it was Lidl's for 20 quid, and he goes, "Is this the best synthesizer for 20 quid?" And I thought, I'm going to go down after work and try and buy one. So I went down and didn't have a synthesizer. I did come away with a 3-man tent and an inflatable canoe, but anyway. But then, of course, that was it. The seed was planted. I went onto Amazon, onto eBay, and I bought. It's over there. It's fucking huge. It's a Roland DX10, I think it is.
Right.
It's
Oh, D10.
It's a D10. Yeah, I mean
Yeah, so that's like
it's a full size synthesizer.
that's that's late 80s, isn't it?
I
The
think
D10.
it is. I think it is.
90,
Of course, when
yeah.
I plugged it in, I'm like, oh bugger, it's not working. And I realised it doesn't have speakers.
Hasn't got speakers. That's it. Yeah, you got to stick headphones in or chuck it into an amp. I think I know the video that you're talking about though. That guy who bought like this thing.
And he took it to bits. I think he took it to bits as well to look at it.
Yeah. Just like a circuit board with this like epoxy blob chip on it. There's like nothing to it, really, is there? But if you think about people, if I remember correctly, the sounds on it weren't bad. It had like a good piano sound. It had like a pretty decent drum set. It's the sort of thing that in the 80s you would have paid thousands of pounds for something that could do those kind of sounds. Now it's like 20 quid in Lidl. In the middle of Lidl.
Absolutely insane. I saw another interesting video, and I thought it was like a keyboard, but it's not. It's a piece of software, and it allows you. You obviously need a MIDI keyboard to connect it, but it allows you to have it'll replicate all the sort of famous synthesizer sounds from classic tracks. Final Countdown, Dire Straits, all this kind of stuff, and it's Howard Jones' new song, and I'm like, oh, brilliant. The only problem with these things is you've got to actually have some talent to play it. So, but I buy a keyboard and I'm like absolutely bloody hopeless, but I like just fanning about with it. You know what I mean? It gives me some enjoyment.
That's it. If it's fun, then it's worth doing, isn't it?
Absolutely, I know. So anyway, yeah, eight years ago, where has the time gone? What you've been up to these last 8 years, mate? You still kind of dabbling with the Atari 2600 programming at all? Have you?
I haven't done anything on the 2600. I think probably if it's 8 years ago, that would have been before. It would have been after I did the music for TXK, but before Polybius. Yeah. So music-wise, I did a track for Polybius, and I was still dabbling with assembly language. So very good friend of mine, Matt Sefton.
I know Matt. Yeah.
Yeah. In about 2017, he got in touch with me about a game on the Sega Game Gear. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Magical Puzzle Pop-Ills.
Magical Puzzle Pop-Ills.
Pop-Ills, yeah. And it's this. I can't remember what the little guy's name is, but there's the princess in it. It's called Princess Pudding, and you've got to bash these blocks to get to her. And so you kind of you bash a block, and then like a block falls down, and you've got to kind of climb up ladders to let her walk to the exit. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a bit Lemmingsy. Mm-hmm. But one of the things is that the game will count the number of steps you've taken to get to this princess or to get to the exit. So what he wanted to do, and I think your score or something is based on the number of steps you've taken. Yeah. So the fewer steps you take, the better your score. So he got in touch with me and was like, I wouldn't mind if there would be a way of displaying the number of steps that I've done at the bottom of the screen. So he downloaded like a disassembler for Z80 processors, which is what the Game Gear uses. And we kind of we figured out how between the two of us, like where in the memory these steps were being held, and I kind of figured out where the drawing routine for the text was. So we kind of got it going, and so he was really able to kind of whittle down his, really optimize his playing of each level based on the number of steps. But it was really interesting the different ways we work. He's very into using the tools that are available, very resourceful about kind of using such and such disassembler and the emulator that you can kind of link in with this disassembler. And I was just there with like pen and paper doing the Z80 instructions by hand. I'm a very kind of like pen and paper kind of guy when it comes
Yeah,
to that
yeah.
sort of thing. So that was a few years back. And then when we were all thrust into lockdown, I ripped apart an old Atari ST game called Droid, which you might remember. It was a cover disc game on ST format.
I don't remember that one. I must admit, as you know, and I'm ashamed to say, I didn't have my Atari ST for very long.
Right.
Don't recall that one, Droid.
This was kind of like early mid-90s it came out, so it could have been you might have moved on by that point.
Oh yeah, I was on the Amiga at that point. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. With that one, so it was so for making an Atari 2600 game was a really important like personal goal for me, because it was like I want to know this machine intimately enough so that I can make a game for it. And it's the same with the ST. It's like I would have loved to have been able to make a game like back in the day for it. So a lot of people will remake a game for, they'll take like an old 8-bit game or a 16-bit game and they'll remake it for the PC. But I remade an Atari ST game for the Atari ST. So the original game had like the way that the screen was laid out is you had like half of the screen was the game, and then you had like a massive banner at the top that said Droid, and then like half of the screen below was how many bullets you had and what your energy was and stuff. And the scrolling, it could only scroll up and down, so it only had like two-way scrolling. So I kind of disassembled it, ripped all the graphics out, and then used all of the features of the STE, so like the blitter chip and the hardware scrolling and that sort of thing, and ultimately got it full screen, 8-way scrolling. It looks really, really good. It looks a lot different from the original. So that's something I kind of did. Yeah, that was like 2020, 2021.
You'll need to send me a copy of that if that's all right.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd be more than happy.
What I'll do is I'll have you got that? In fact, I'll probably have the original somewhere on an image.
So what happened is about a year after I made it, I tried to get in touch with the original guy who made it and managed to find him on Facebook. I don't think he really uses Facebook that much, so I could just like see he hadn't picked my message up for like a few months. But then it just so happened that he dropped a comment on a YouTube video for Droid like 9 years before or something. And so I just replied to this comment, like this really ancient comment on YouTube. And I was just trying to get hold of you on Facebook. I've remade Droid. And I don't know how would I feel about somebody kind of saying, I've taken a game that you made 30 years ago and I've remade it.
Because it was shite.
Kind of a bit mind blowing. Yeah, I think he was kind of like a bit taken aback by that. But yeah, we started talking, and then I posted it on a couple of Atari pages. And there's a company called Bitmap Soft. I don't know if you're aware of them. Not Bitmap Brothers, but Bitmap Soft. They publish games. So they got in touch with me and they said, like, how about we stick this in a box and sell it? So I've got it here actually. So a chap called, I don't know if this is like back to front or not on the camera.
It's gone the right way. Yeah, cool. How cool is that?
Yeah. So a chap called John Blythe did the cover for it, and it's proper sort of like
that is
box thing,
awesome.
manual, massive poster, badge,
brilliant.
And it's on a disc as well. Awesome. But funnily enough, I haven't actually got. Since I spoke to you, I've really whittled down my collection of stuff. So I haven't got an ST anymore. Haven't got any Amigas. Haven't got. Yeah, no, I've got a PS Vita, which I use really just for like retro art.
Yeah. It's still good.
And I've got a PS4, which very rarely gets used, and I've got a main cab as well.
The one you bought from the chippy for about 15 quid, wasn't it?
The one I bought from it was a kebab shop. I bought it about 20 years ago now. And the monitor in it died about like 3 or 4 years ago. And I kind of like just tossed it into the side of the lounge and was like, I'm not really going to be able to find a monitor for this, because for me, it's got to be like a proper CRT monitor. Yeah. It's got to have the look. So I was like, I'm never really going to find one. And then so and in the back of it, it had like an Athlon motherboard. It had like a PC running DOS, and I was like, because I'm never going to get this running, I just like tossed that all out, just took that to the skip. So I just basically had the cab sitting in my lounge for like 2 or 3 years doing nothing. And then, kind of an amazing story actually. Just before Christmas, one of my customers got in touch with me and said they had a tenant who was moving to France. They rented out a barn and they had a tenant who was moving to France, and he was an absolute hoarder of stuff. He was like floor to ceiling, just total shite, just all kinds of stuff. And I think like the removal company wanted like £10,000 or something to move all this stuff to France. So he was like, right, no, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave my stuff here. You can either dump it or you can try and sell it or whatever. And they got in touch with me because they said, well, there's a couple of computer bits here. Just, I don't know if it's valuable at all, or, if there's, or if we just need to junk it. So I went over there to have a look, and there was like an Athlon tower and like this massive box of hard drives there. And I was like, to be honest, like none of this stuff is really worth anything. You'd be kind of wasting your time trying to sell any of it. But then I turned around and on the shelf I saw a box for like Sensible Soccer and Flashback. And I looked closer and it had like Amiga written on it. And I thought, right, if there's more of this stuff, then this could be tasty. and I was like, the chances are, if he's got Amiga games, there's got to be an Amiga laying around here somewhere. There's got to be some stuff. So I was like, okay, what you want to do? Because they had like more to dig out. It was an absolute pigsty. So so I was like, what you're looking for? Anything with like Commodore written on it, Atari, Sinclair, all that sort of stuff. If you find any of that, give me a shout and we'll see what we can do. So they called me back a week later and they said, oh, we found a Commodore keyboard and some other stuff. I think because a Commodore, Amiga or a C64 or something like that just doesn't look like a keyboard. They didn't realize that
it's a computer.
They found a computer. So I went over, and it was phenomenal. I went in and just the room was just like covered in like there was an STE there was a ZX Spectrum 128. Like the original toast rack.
They're quite hard to get.
Yeah. Really rare stuff. Like an MSX. There was an Amiga 500, an Amiga 2000, which like the keyboards for those alone go for like 150, something like that, because they're just so difficult to get hold of. A Tatung Einstein.
Oh yeah.
Einstein.
I've never owned one, but yeah, I'm well aware of it. Yeah.
A weird looking thing, like really, really big. Goes back really far.
Even bigger than Amiga, yeah. Because that was like fucking mad. It's like half a football pitch size Amiga. It took up your whole desk.
Yeah, an Amiga went back far enough, but yeah, this Einstein thing was just huge. And they had a Amstrad 6128, CPC 6128.
Yeah, I think they're quite hard to get.
An Olivetti Prodest, which is like a late 80s Olivetti PC, but it had a very like Atari Mega ST kind of look to it, that kind of like that kind of grey, cool wedge shape.
Yeah, nice,
really interesting, and and like 40 to 50 Amiga games. So we just put it on eBay, see how it went, and I think they ended up getting like $2,500 for all of it.
Fantastic!
Yeah, they did all right. So it paid for some of the repairs because the guy had really left the place in it.
Yeah,
nice. But one of the things that they had there was I just saw in the corner. This Philips TV, just like this box with like Philips 14-inch color TV, which is the same size monitor that I had in my cab. So I kind of came up with a price for what I wanted to help them out, for them to give me to help out. And I was like, could I also have this TV? And they said, oh yeah, sure. We've got no use for it. You just take it. So I finally had this way of getting a monitor back in the cab, which was cool. But then obviously I ditched the PC. So I didn't have anything to plug into the monitor. So I actually had a spare Raspberry Pi. So I put on Recall box on that, which is like a really nice kind of interface, and had that running in the into the TV. And it's hilarious. Like looking at the cab now, I had like a proper PC motherboard in it, but it's just got this tiny little Raspberry Pi running the whole show now. It's just like this
Complete
massive cabinet.
space, all that fresh air and nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I've recently got my cab up and running. So yeah, between the Vita and the PS4 and the cab, that's what I'm
Fantastic.
gaming
Yeah,
on.
well,
So,
I tweeted
yeah,
myself. I mean, a mate built, he built me a MAME cab back in 2014.
nice.
Yeah, which was great. And then I was always, it was just a kind of bar top, but I've got it sitting on this IKEA unit thing, so it's great. It's twin sticks and all that.
Hmm.
But I always wanted like a full size kind of cabinet. And then there's a guy who I know through I think he's held the world high. He's held the world high score for Defender and bloody Robotron. A guy called Paul Spriggs, lovely guy from Newcastle. So he put I think, oh, I'm selling my Defender cabs. I messaged him. I said, oh, how much do you want for it? I think it was like 500 quid. But it wasn't. It was like he built it himself, but it had all the proper
Okay.
things. So anyway, I decided, right, fuck it, I'm having it, because at that point I'd split from my missus. I've been living in my own. Well, my daughter's through the wall. I've been living here now for 5 years, so I thought, so the main my main cab went into my kitchen. I thought a Defender cab would look really nice next to it, so I hired a van, drove down to Newcastle with Ava, my daughter. We picked up this thing, and it was fucking enormous, honestly. And I got it into my kitchen. I mean, I'm not the tallest bloke in the world. I'm like, this is a bit too big, but you had casters on it, so I managed to, like, when you do one of these jobs where you know you're putting yourself at risk, like trying to lift a 32-inch TV out the loft hatch, and you think, if this ladder goes, I'm fucked. But you still go ahead and do it. I had this
Yeah.
MAME cab, this Defender cab balanced against the wall, and I'm underneath it trying to take the thing. And if this came down, I'm dead. But ideally, by an ideal coffin for me, you could just take the cabinet and put me inside it. But anyway, so I got that, and it's the proper Defender controls. I mean, it's an 8-way joystick, but obviously Defender only moves up and down. But it's got all the proper buttons and the proper layout, so I can
Oh,
now
great.
finally play Defender, because it's a game that I always looked at. I thought I'd love to be able to play that game, and it's impossible. But with the proper controls, I can now play it. I'm absolutely pish. I mean, it was hilarious because about a year later, they were having a Williams weekend down at Arcade Club. And Paul said, "Do you want to
Hmm.
come down?" I said, "Ah, great." So I went down, and I'm shite. And all these guys are putting up like 2 million in Defender and Robotron and all this. It's great it's incredible to see these guys playing these games. It's just like fucking hell. But what was really interesting was they had this other Robotron cab, and just for a laugh, they decided to reverse the controls, and they had like a high score competition, see who could get the highest score. And you know what? Your brain is as hardwired. Left is move, fire, right is fire. See, when you swap that
Muscle
around,
memory.
I mean, they were getting like 2,000. It's impossible, absolutely impossible. But anyway, so I got that, and then lo and behold, I saw a marketplace Facebook. I can't remember what it's called. It's a cabinet that came out 1999. It's something 2000. It looks really futuristic. So it came out the late 90s, and what did it have in it? Did it have? Oh, it had Double Dragon or something, but proper CRT and all that kind of thing. So I messaged the guy. I
Nice.
says, "How much you want?" I think he was only wanting something like 400 quid for it, and these go for stupid money now. And I'll take it. So he turned up with it, and he got it all working. Oh, that's great. And then he contacted me a week later and says, "How are you getting on with the cab?" I says, "Oh, it's great." I says, "The only thing is," I says, I'm not really big into Double Dragon." He went, ah. He says, "Tell you what I can do." He says, "I've got this multi-board which I can give you." And he said, I'll just swap it. So this had, like, 1,001 games. So he brought that along, fitted. It was great. And then a couple of months later, a mate who's got exactly the same cabinet, he put a Raspberry Pi in, and what's it called? They come up with these stupid names. It's a guy in Australia sells this device, so you can connect I don't know how you managed to do it, connect the Raspberry Pi to a proper CRT monitor. And I've got to say, it
Yeah.
works really well. I mean, it looks tremendous. And having the big fuck off CRT is great. The only problem is, because it's the depth of the control panel's quite not very deep, if that makes any sense. So you're kind of like
Hmm.
that. You're like really close up to the monitor. So you've got to try and, if you're playing like 1942, you're only looking at that part of the screen, and you're obviously trying to.
Right.
So you have to kind of try and. I need to grow longer arms. You need to stand further back to play it. But it's tremendous. So I've now got 3 like arcade cabinets in my kitchen. So
Amazing.
it's mental, absolutely mental. Ah, dear.
That's crazy.
But I saw you're still doing music. So obviously you actually won an award for the track that you did for TXK, didn't you? Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that was that was an amazing
Yeah.
experience. It was like whisked up to Brighton on the train, and it's like the Hilton Metropole, I think, hotel. And yeah, it was like uh, all of like gaming royalty was there. You know, it was quite an overwhelming experience in a lot of ways, but very cool. And I managed to get into the after party afterwards, which was conveniently really close to the hotel that I was staying in as well. So
Did you
just
not?
kind of stumbled back
Did you
home.
not meet
Yeah,
like Eugene Jarvis or something? You met somebody really famous, did you know?
I met Gary Bracey.
Yeah, Gary's a
So
top bloke. He's a lovely guy.
yeah, no, he's really cool. Yeah, and I was kind of he was like uh, just running himself a cigarette or something, and I was like, oh, Gary Bracey, like crazy. Can I shake your hand? And we had like a little chat. No, he's a really cool guy actually. Yeah.
I've an anecdote which I've told a million. I said the problem is with me, I've been doing YouTube for such a long time. I'm getting old, and I'm like that. Your old favourite granddad that just repeats the story. He goes, I've heard it 10 times before, but I'll tell you anyway. I was down at was it Blackpool at the Play Blackpool event about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I was just standing minding my own business, and I happened to look. I thought, that's Gary Bracey. Fucking hell. I'll go and have a wee chat with him, see if he can get onto my
Mm.
channel. So I tapped him on the shoulder and introduced myself, and a lovely, lovely guy. And I'm standing blathering, and then that way when you're talking to somebody, and then out the corner of your eye you can see somebody waiting to talk to you, and I'm kind of looking, and there's this
Right.
guy standing next to me, and I went, "You all right, mate?" He went, "Oh, main meister. Oh God. I've been watching your channel for years. It's great to see you." And I said, "Oh, no problem." And then he turns to Gary Bracey. He goes, "Do you know who this guy is? He's a legend." Telling Gary Bracey I'm the legend. And I'm like, "Do you know who this is? This is the fucking guy for Ocean." Fucking hell. But no, Gary's been on. I've had Gary on my channel a couple of times. Um, he's got some fantastic stories to tell. I mean, he was in like
Yeah,
Steven
I bet. Yeah.
Spielberg's office with the ET posters and all that kind of stuff. But I love doing these. I mean, I caught up with on Friday, and again he's been on my channel a few times. Would you call it? Andy Walker, who he started up Task Set software. Do you ever
Really?
remember Super
Wow.
Pipeline, Super Pipeline 2, and all these?
Is that like Pipe Mania?
No, you play the part.
No.
You're trying to clear. You just Google it. But Super Pipeline 2 is it's. If I was to, if somebody asked me to give me a list of your 10 favourite arcade video games of all time, Super Pipeline would be on it. And so I had Gary on the channel just last week, and it's mental. You're thinking, God, I played this game when I was a kid, and this is the guy that wrote it. And even at the end,
That's
he goes,
right.
"Oh,
Yeah.
when you're down in Bridlington, give me a shout. We'll get out for a pint." And I'm like, "Oh, absolutely awesome." And then I managed to finally, I did a 12-hour live stream in November. It was November the 5th last year. We managed to raise, how much was it? Two. Yeah, it was just over £1,500 for charity. Two
Nice one.
brilliant charities. And at the very last minute, I managed. Giles replied to me. And I says, "Look, you and Jeff like to." I met Jeff down at the Zap Live event last year. I was talking to him outside, and so anyway, him and bloody Jeff and Giles, they appeared on the live stream. They were the last two guests. It was quite funny because I had John Hare on just before it, and then when I'm in this StreamYard thing, when somebody joins a stream, I can see them at the bottom, and obviously nobody else can see them. So I'm talking to John here,
Right.
and the next minute I see Jeff and Giles, and I'm like, "Sorry, John, I'm going to have to wrap it up, mate. Somebody else has just had to bloody kick John here out the stream." So, but I mean, they're just awesome. I mean, you know, Jeff is one of these guys. He's a true working class hero. He's been making games longer than anybody, and he's still at it. He's still got the enthusiasm for it.
Still going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So how does
He's still got it as well. It's
what's
not.
that?
He's still got it as well.
Oh,
It's not kind of like.
I know. How does Jeff just get in touch with you? Says, like, I'm looking for some music for my latest game. How does that work?
It kind of it just kind of happens on the forums, really. So we kind of get, with Polybius, who was like, well, I love the music that you guys did for TXK.
Yeah.
How about do you want to get involved again? So yeah, he doesn't like speak to us directly. He didn't like message me and say, do you want to do something? He'll just kind of put it out there, and people are very pleased to be involved with his stuff. So but yeah, it's kind of strange. He doesn't really give, other than saying, I want something that's like Tempest 2000 or something like TXK. You're never really told kind of like, it's got to be like this length of, it's got to be this style of music, or it's got to be like, it's got to go on for this length, and it's got to do this and do that. It's just like, you're awesome. You're all awesome at making tunes. Just like write me some cool music, and I'll find a way to stick it in. And that's kind of it, really.
Yeah. That's
kind of kind of the way it works for him.
So was that?
But yeah, I've done since doing Polybius, I've done I did the music for Droid, and because the original game didn't have music, so I did the music and sound effects for that. But more recently, do you know of a console called the Playdate? It's like
No, is that a physical thing?
It's a physical thing, yeah.
No.
It's so it's like a Game Boy type device. So it's a monochrome display, like fairly high res, and it's got a D-pad and 2 buttons. But the unique thing about the Playdate is on the side of it, you pop out, you press this little thing, or like you pull this little thing on it, and there's a little crank.
I have.
You know
when
the
I
one,
was
yeah?
doing it at Blackpool last year, I saw that, and I can't remember what it was, and it's really small. And I picked it up, and I had a kind of shot of it. I went, oh, this is bloody awesome. And then until I asked them the price, I went, oh, right, okay, I can't afford that. Yeah, I do know. It's a unique thing. Was it not a kind of Kickstarter type thing initially, was it? Or no?
I don't. Possibly. I think there were some supply issues, because obviously,
Aye.
the past
He
few
did
years
say
have been
that.
really
I think he
difficult.
said even if you wanted one, I couldn't sell yet because they're not available. But you'd
Yeah,
have to wait.
I think it's only just like now, the past like month or two, they've actually started shipping to more than just
Yeah.
the early adopters of it. But Matt Sefton he's really been involved in the Playdate community, and he's made a lot of utilities and that kind of thing for Playdate, and he's made a few games. One of which is called Yo-Yozo, and I think it's based on a game called Pendulumania. I think that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Late 90s, perhaps. I don't know what console it came out on, but basically it's a game where you have a kind of like a wrecking ball kind of thing, where it's based on the gravity and the momentum of how far you can sort of swing something across the screen, and you've got to collect these little stars. And the more stars you collect, the heavier it gets. So, like physics-wise, it gets more and more difficult to swing across the screen. And he needed some music for that, so he got in touch and said, "I need some music for this game." But the goal of it was he wanted to make it as small as possible. He wanted to make the smallest Playdate game ever. I think he managed to get it down to about 40k, but the limitation there is that I couldn't have just given him an MP3 with music in it, because that would have just been really huge. So there's a thing called Pulp, which is a website that you can go to, and it's called Playdate Pulp, and you can make the graphics in there. You can write the code for the game in there. It's not the only way that you write games for it, but it's just like a really easy way of like prototyping a game. And there's like a really, really simple music synthesizer in this Pulp thing. But because it's simple, it doesn't take up any space. When you're writing music, your actual data that represents the music isn't very big at all. So I used this Pulp thing, and got him a couple of tracks within a couple of days, and it made on the Ars Technica website, it was one of their games of the year 2023.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good achievement.
Have you got a Playdate?
I haven't got a Playdate. No, I've played Matt's one. It's a very cool little thing. It's interesting because you think, this crank thing is a little bit gimmicky, or
Yeah,
you know,
what game can you
what
use it for other than a fishing game? You know, reeling the fish sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's I think that's kind of everyone's first kind of like thought of like, oh, you know, what can you use this for? But other people have done games like where you go forwards and backwards in time. So I think like you're sort of like moving across the screen like a normal platform game, but then an enemy comes up, so you can like rewind it and then let this enemy pass and then kind of go forward. There's another one where you have to play a vinyl record and you have to turn the crank at the correct speed to get it to play
brilliant. Yeah,
properly. So yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where just people are just keeping on
yeah.
coming up with
Just
ideas for it.
talking of that. Are you aware of the Pico 8 console?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was kind of late to the party with that thing. I'd heard of it. I didn't really know what it was, and then when I was at I go to this computer club thing once a month, and there was a guy. He'd built himself this little sort of cab thing, and he was playing. It was like a version of Scramble, and I'm like, that's what the hell's that? That's really cool. He's, oh, it's Pico 8, and I didn't know what it was, and then I got myself. It's called a Pow Kiddie RGB, whatever it's called, basically a little Game Boy
Mm,
thing, and it's great, and it came with like Pico 8 games on it, and then I bought it just a few months about a month ago, and it's bloody awesome. I mean, I think the fact that I think it's 181 by 181 resolution. It's the
mm.
colours are so vibrant. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago, and I tried to explain. I says it's almost like the games you make in the Pico 8 look like they should be in a cabinet from 1981. They're
Yeah,
really bright. They're quite simple, obviously quite low res, but it's got the grunt. It's got the processing power of a modern PC. So you're playing something
yeah.
like Berserk. There's this one guy, is it Paul Hammond? I think his name is. He's been knocking out all these absolutely fantastic arcade conversions, and it's great. You know, it's absolutely
'Cause
superb.
I think somebody's done virtual racing for it and
Oh,
stuff, haven't they? They've done
it
like,
wouldn't surprise
uh,
me. I mean, there are
yeah,
quite. I think I downloaded a torrent. But I mean, you can just there's a you can actually download games off the Pico 8 interface itself. But yeah, there's something like
mm,
12,000 games. It's just insane. It's brilliant. But I
insane,
mean,
isn't it? Yeah,
it's and what I didn't realize, if you press escape twice, you can actually go into the code and you can change the spaceship into a ball and cock, obviously, or whatever you want it to be. So it's brilliant, but still way over my head right enough. But it's awesome. Just before we kind of move on to the actual main podcast, Jamie, are you
mm.
aware of the Mister? You know what the Mister is?
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
the
Have
Mister.
you got
Yeah,
one at all?
you got
No.
one. I haven't, no. But yeah, no, they're very
They're
cool. The number of
yeah.
like different cores
I
and
mean,
stuff
I've
that
got
people are.
still got a huge collection of stuff. You can probably see some of it behind me. Um,
Oh, is that like a? Oh, you got some like LCD,
these are
like
all
or
these are all the classic things from like the 1980s, and that's a Virtua Boy. That is actually Chris Atchie. That's his Virtua Boy.
oh right,
That was an
really?
original Retro Fusion. Yeah. There you go.
I've probably played on
There
that
you
one then,
go. There it's
actually.
yeah.
But
Bloody hell.
so and that's still working and
It
everything because I know that
still
sometimes
works.
don't them
Yeah. It's still.
because like the mirrors fail or
What's
something
that?
on those, don't they? I think don't the mirrors fail on
I
those?
don't know. That's the kind of yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's I mean, it's the 3D effect is astounding, astonishing, whatever. And it's all mechanical. I mean, it is, as you say, it's
Yeah.
all like smoke and mirrors. But so I've got a big collection of stuff. I keep meaning to try and sell stuff, but the problem is I hate eBay with a passion. And even the
Yeah.
whole faffing about having it. I mean, what did I sell recently? I sold something. Can't remember what it was. And it's like, where the hell am I going to get a box for it? It's quite literally the
Mm.
guy's me. Oh, where are you going to post it, mate? I'm like, I haven't got a fucking box for it. And it's the whole
Yeah.
hassle of posting stuff. So I've got loads and loads of shite. I mean, you were talking about like your CRT. I mean, I got that there. That's a 32.
Oh,
That's a
nice.
32-inch Sony Trinitron, which was like the desired TV back in the day. I got that. There was a guy down in Dumfries who was getting rid of it, and I drove like 100 miles to get it because these things are like bloody gold dust. So I've got all this shite. I'm not getting any younger, and I've not got the technical ability to fix stuff. So if that Virtual Boy or anything else from the Amiga and all that stops working, then I'm basically screwed. So people had been going on about how wonderful this Mister is, and but that's just an emulator. No, it's better than an emulator. I don't believe that, because emulators are great. And then I finally got to try one, and it kind of clicked. So I bought one. I ended up buying bloody two, because you can't have too many. Can't have too many misters. So I bought a second one. But the thing that I love about it, that TV behind me there has got it's purely set up for a mister. And what I love about it is you switch it on and it comes on within seconds, and you just pick, for example, the Tatong Einstein, boom, and then you've just got the screen. It'll like ready, flashing cursor, and you've got exactly the same experience using that as you would if you had an original keyboard. The thing I don't like about emulators on PCs is you have all these, like, you think, oh, I'll play a Spectrum game. You've got the massive list of games, and you're going through it, and there's screenshots and there's videos and all that, and you don't feel like you're using a real Spectrum. You know that you're playing, you're using it on another thing. That thing there, you switch it on, Commodore 64, you've just got the cursor. Right now, what do? You press a button, insert a disk, load, inverted commas, asterisk, comma 8, comma 1, run, blah, blah, blah. You've got to physically type in commands. So that thing, I've got one sitting there. It's like owning I don't know, it's got every computer you could possibly think of, really has. It also supports all the consoles. I mean, it even supports the Sega Saturn. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's got that much kind of.
And it's literally just recently supported the N64. And
right,
again, my tiny brain couldn't really understand the difference between that and an emulator. And what somebody tried to say to me was, you've got like the chips in a PC, you've got an operating system called Windows, and then you're running a Spectrum emulator, which is then running the Spectrum. That there, you're basically flashing the Spectrum code onto the chips. So there's no.
Yeah, it's basically replicating the circuit board.
Exactly, at low level. So it's as low level as you get. So if you buy, you can get a little device so that you can plug like an original SNES controller in, and it is 100% accurate. Because if you don't have that, I mean, it doesn't matter. I've got an arcade stick thing which I plug into it, and it is utterly sublime. It is brilliant. And the reason I've got that is because I think, well, if somebody would come and buy all my shite, I can still enjoy. I've had my fun with having all these original things. I mean, I've actually sold my Amiga because apparently the history behind the Mister, whoever came up with it, it was they wanted to replicate an Amiga and an Atari ST, and that's what that thing came from. And then obviously it's supported other stuff. It now supports all these different systems, and it also supports arcade games. Every arcade game or computer is called a core. So you've got, I think there's maybe about 300 MAME games. I'm calling it MAME games. It's not MAME, arcade games. And some people have said to me, well, that's, my MAME on the PC's got 10,000 games. You've only got 400. I said, but the thing is, going back to the early noughties when we first got the internet, when MAME came along, it supported like maybe 50 games, and then if you went to Dave's Video Game Classics, it would tell you the next version of MAME is going to support Yer Kung Fu. You're like, oh bloody hell! I'm going to be able to play the arcade version of Yer Kung Fu, and you were excited for it, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to play it. I've now got that same excitement with the Mister, because when you run an update, suddenly there's a couple of new games appear, and it's like, fucking hell, it's like it just keeps giving. It just gets better and better and better. I mean, they're £400 is what you'll pay for one, but as far as I'm concerned, it's worth every little penny. You've got about 100 systems perfect in this little box. I mean, it's no bigger than I don't know, the size of an iPhone box. It's absolutely the dog's bollocks.
Yeah,
I love it.
And it's like, having 300, 400 games is fine. Who's ever going to have the time to play 10,000 games? You're just going to have like paralysis of choice, aren't you, when you've got like that much? So that thing, you just like kind of play one game for a couple of minutes and then stick another one on because you've got that many to get through. But yeah, no, that sounds really cool. Yeah, I've never had a Mister, never seen one in real life. But yeah, apparently it's all like cycle accurate, and isn't it? So like even the most tricky software runs really well on it. Apparently, like so people have been using the ST core to run things like Cubase, and apparently the timing on the Mister is even more tight than the original ST.
Is that right? Yeah.
It's like like a machine. It's like just very tight. So yeah, no, I've heard really good things about it.
I've got 4, it was about 10 big massive plastic tubs just rammed with shite, all kind of video game related shite under my bed. In fact, I actually do. I've got a feature where I call "What's in the box," and I just dig out this box and I just video what I can find. Oh, look, there's a Spectrum printer. There's a ZX81 power pack. There is I think there is a copy of Cubase in one of them for the Atari ST, which I have no use for. If you want it, you can have it. I know you've not got an ST, but if you
haven't got an ST, no, you might want to stick that on eBay. Well, I know that eBay is kind of a bit of a tricky one, but it's probably got some value actually because the I think was it Cubase or no? It's like that those music programs used to have a security dongle.
Yeah.
And like, over time, those security dongles would die or go missing or whatever. Somebody's actually cracked. They where they put acid on chips and then like actually decode what the circuit is on the chip. Somebody did that, and they've now been able to just write a patch for Cubase because it was notorious for being difficult to crack. It would be like it had cracks back in the day, but they were very unstable, and the program would keep crashing. But now they've been able to look at the circuit. They're like, oh yeah, we know what register this is looking at every 50 milliseconds or something. So they've just patched it, and you don't need those dongles anymore. So I think there's kind of even if you don't know if it works or not, it's even if you don't know if the dongle works or not, it's like as long as the disc is in there.
I'll need to do that. I've got so much stuff. I mean, it's mental because I mean, I'm conscious that if I was to kick the bucket tomorrow, my daughter would she'd come in here and go, I don't know what I'm going to do with this stuff. It's like worthless to her. But then you look up there and there's stuff, cartridges. There's like a basic cartridge from Atari 800. That's probably 50 quid's worth of.
Yeah.
Somebody would come along.
She's probably got some idea that there's like value.
I'll give you 500 quid for everything. I mean, if somebody was to come along and say, I'll give you $5,000 for everything, I go, there you go, son. You fill your boots, Anyway, listen, mate, we better. I've almost taken up an hour of your time. We better crack on with this. So, we've got Jamie along for the Nice and Nasty podcast experience. You know the premise behind it, Jamie. I gave you a bit of homework. I asked you to pick 3 games. If the government were to come along tomorrow and say, right, all video games are banned. If you play any, you're going to get sent to jail. However, we will give you 3 games that you can play. And 3 games only. It can be anything you want. If it was an online game, there is going to be people out there that can play the game with you. It can be an arcade game. It can be anything. It can have Wi-Fi. You name it. 3 games. Would you like to give me game number 1 that you would pick and give me the reasons why you picked it?
Yeah, so I think like it's almost a different question to what are your favourite games? Yeah, because I'd say that my favourite games are ones that I've played to death, and I can sort of sit back and close my eyes and sort of just replay them in my head. So I'd probably be a bit more strategic with it and take games that I haven't actually completed or haven't really spent much time on or something like that. So my first game would be, and now because I've got my cab up and running, I have been playing this quite a bit recently, would be the original Outrun, because I've known that game for 35 years and I only completed the easy course the other day. So, I've been playing it for a long time and I've not really kind of got very far with it. So, phenomenal music. The soundtrack on Outrun's great. I would probably actually take, I don't know if you know, somebody has disassembled the original game and made something called Cannonball.
Yeah, and it runs quicker and 60 frames per second, whatever it is. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. He's double the frame rate. And one of the modes in that is you can play all of the stages one after the other. So whereas on the original one, you had to kind of pick the different parts. Right. And then you'd have like a different ending.
So it's consecutive, so you quite literally just drive through every single... brilliant.
Just one long drive. Yeah. Wow. So, it would probably be Outrun. It would probably be the Cannonball version of Outrun, but in an Outrun cab, because it's a game that I've been playing for years and years and years, and never really kind of got very far with. And it's just a wonderful. I like driving, and if I'm on a desert island, I'm not really going to have the chance to drive. So I think Outrun would be my substitute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much like yourself. Well, apart from I haven't completed Outrun, exactly the same. I think I've maybe got to the fourth level, whatever. I think it's one of these games. Obviously, the original, you had the steering wheel, you had the gear stick. Trying to play, a game, you need an analog kind of stick. You could get away with a sort of digital controller, but you do need playing it on a proper sit down cab is still awesome. I mean, it is even now, it is still bloody impressive. It's all sprite based or whatever it's called. It's not polygons, whatever. It just, yeah, it was incredible. I still remember seeing it for the first time in Edinburgh, and then a couple of months later, seeing VG Computer Video Games gave away an audio tape of Outrun music, and on the flip side, it was 720. And I was the dog's bollocks. I was driving about in my RS 2000 lookalike Ford Escort Mark One, and it was like bright orange, and I had the Outrun tape just blasting this music out, magical sound shower.
But yeah, it still makes an impression,
It's
doesn't it?
yeah.
The music,
There's
the
I
way it
mean,
looks.
there's been a few people over the years that I've spoke to. Oh, Outruns. It's a shallow game. There's not much to it. It's just left and right. Well, you could argue that about anything, but it's the overall experience. The
Yeah.
music. It's just it still is a stunning game. Have you played it in the sort of the hydraulic flavor at all?
Yeah, so it was kind of one of those things where, like, when the fair came to town every year, they'd have like a little arcade kind of thing, and they did have the because there are two versions, aren't there? There's the sit down one where you're kind of like in this kind of funny
And it
little
moves about. Yeah.
cartoony car. Yeah, it like moves side to side. But I think they had like the one that you sit in. The not maybe no, it does look like a Ferrari. It does look
Right.
like the Testarossa,
Yeah.
and you sit in it, and the whole thing
Yeah.
swivels around. We did have that there once, so I have played that. I would have been about 9 or 10 at the time. But funnily enough, it was the very first game I had on the ST. I don't know if
Not a good
you probably remember
experience.
the ST. Not great. I didn't know what to expect from the ST when I first booted it up. But even at the age of 9, being really excited about Outrun and sticking it in, and I'm like, what is this? Is this all this computer can do? Luckily, that wasn't the case. But yeah, my first impression of the Atari ST was based on
Yeah,
Outrun.
it was. Yeah,
So that wasn't
I
a good
mean,
start.
it was. I think like yourself, Outrun was the big game, and you thought, oh, it's going to be great. But the 18-year-old mainmeister knew that it's the Commodore 64 is not going to be able to do a particularly good version of this, and I was right. The funny thing is, people talk about how awful it is. I've revisited these games, and they're not good games, but they're not as bad. They're not as bad as I remember it to be. I look at it now, I think, well, yeah, it's not great, but it's not as bad. But that's probably because I didn't just flash out 40 quid for it. And you
Yeah,
know that it's shite, so you play it for what it is. But you looked at the screenshots in the back of the Atari ST or the Amiga, and it's like, oh, it looks great, and the graphics were great. And it's only when it started moving, it's like, jerky. There's a challenge for
yeah,
you. You need to bring out the definitive version of Outrun.
right.
There's a challenge.
Somebody did actually try to do an STE version of Outrun. They just took the original code and replaced the sprites with the ones ripped from the arcade
Oh,
game, and
yeah,
then drew everything with a blitter, which was a lot better actually,
yeah.
even based on the original code base.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that was something else I did actually. Somebody did. I don't know if you saw that there was an STE version of Lotus Esprit Turbo
Hmm.
Challenge like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Yeah, and I did the sound coding on that. So yeah, this guy was like playing around with the trying to get the blitter to draw the routines, and he kind of gave up because it was very, very slow. And then like 2 or 3 Christmases ago, he was like, okay, I've got a week where I'm doing nothing. I'm just going to fire this up again. And he managed to get the performance, perfectly, like nearly pretty much 25 frames per second, and got the because on the original ST version, the sprites would move like 16 pixels at a time, so it was very, very jerky compared to the Amiga. So he managed to get that. What was interesting is the amount of vestigial Amiga code that's still in the
Oh
ST
yeah.
version of that was just like skipped over in the original version, but it was there to be tapped into for like all this pixel precision stuff. So, but he didn't know how to tackle the sound, and I sort of got involved with that. And so you got the original like roaring Lotus Esprit sample in the STE version now.
Awesome,
So
mate.
thank you, link for that.
Yeah.
That was pretty well received as well. It was quite good.
Well,
So yeah, who knows? I think certainly the ST and Amiga could do a much better version of Outrun than it got. I think the guy who did Cannonball is now actually working on an Amiga 1200 version of Cannonball.
Oh really? Yeah.
Yeah, for like non-accelerated Amigas and stuff. I think he's getting there. It's
I think
coming
you'll
along quite
find it
nicely.
probably back then that there was like real tight deadlines, and it was like you've got like
Of course,
6
yeah.
weeks to put out Outrun, and they were just battered out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that had a serious impact. Yeah.
So that's game number 1 of your choice. What would game number 2 be?
Yeah. So game number 2 would be, and again, this is something I've been playing a lot on the cab, and I think it's a game that you like as well. And it's when I play a game, I'm not particularly interested in getting the highest score. If it's a game that can be completed, then if I can get to the end of the game, fine. I don't want to 100% it. I don't want to really care about what score I get. But this game, I do care about the score, and it's Berserk, the original Berserk.
Yeah.
Love it. It's one of those games where you've got to turn out all the lights, and you've just got to have this kind of blue and red and yellow colors just kind of firing at your face with nothing else going on. And it's a game I can just kind of sit there and play and sort of just see how far I can get, and try and best myself each go. I think as well, listening to one of your other podcasts, you were saying about how you don't really like giving yourself too many credits on main.
It continues. It just goes against the grain. Yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the nice thing with Berserk is it doesn't have continue, so you want 1 credit and that's it. So you have to try and play it well to get anywhere.
I take it there's the 2 different versions. There's version A and version B. I think there's like German as well. And one of them, it's fast bullets.
I didn't know that. I'd noticed that there was Berserk set 1 and set 2. So I've just been playing set 1.
2 is fast bullet. You'll see the difference as soon as you start. The bullets just go really, really, really quick. You want to play it on the easier one.
Yeah, well, it looks like I have, and I've been able to. I think my high score at the moment is like 10,000, and that's on a good day.
I managed. I can't remember how. It's just one of these things because you're making a lot of videos and what have you. You play a lot of games, and I remember playing Berserk. I was in America with my family, and we were in Reno, Nevada, actually. And we were in this casino, and I was just kind of standing about looking, and there was a Berserk cabinet. And I remember putting like 25 cents into it and dying within about 30 seconds, and that was the end. I never saw the game again. And then it appeared in MAME, and I'm looking at the graphic like, that's shite, that's a terrible game. And I started playing it, and something just clicked, and it's just the pure, gameplay of the game. Move left and right, fire, and it's learning the robots' movements. Never ever try and take them out diagonally. Instantly get out of the way of them. If you don't, you're going to die because the bullets do go quicker down the way. And I became quite obsessed with it for a couple of years, and I managed to get my best score. I think it was it 21,000 I got on it, which doesn't sound much, but you'll know that's a pretty good score.
That's an
Yeah, I
achievement.
mean, I
Yeah,
think the
yeah.
world high score record is about 100,000. So that was, but
Really.
it's I could go down to I could go down right now, put in 10 credits in my main cab, and the first 3 games I'll get like 1,500 points. It's just brutal. It's,
Yeah. It really is. And like the way that the AI works on the enemies, it's so
yeah,
simple. But the way that you can like hoodwink them into walking into a wall or like walk into
yeah.
each other, I don't know whether it is coded like that or whether that's just a byproduct of how basic the AI is.
Yeah,
But
there's not many games I would say I'm qualified to kind of give tips on, but I would probably say that's one game I could give a few tips on. Yeah, I mean, like you utilize Evil Auto taking out. Don't always try and get the last.
yeah,
You always want to try and clear the screen if you can because you get more points. At the end of the day, you're
yeah.
never going to beat the game. You're going to die eventually. You want to try and
Hmm.
never ever exit from the top or the bottom because then you reappear at the
Yeah,
top and the bottom, and they're instantly
yeah,
going to kill you. I mean, it's one of these games. There's a lot of luck involved. You can have 3 lives left. You appear, boom, dead. You appear, boom, dead. Like for
yeah,
fuck's sake! And it's just you want to try and you've got about I don't know half a second to react. You want to try and get out of the way, get out of the line of fire. But you never
yeah,
never go out the top or bottom. You utilize the robots shooting each other. Don't always be greedy, but sometimes there might be a time where you think, well, I could try and get that last robot, but no, just move on. Yeah, he might mock you, whatever, but it's better
yeah,
to the number of times that I'll go and try and take out that last robot and die. But it's yeah, it's absolutely fantastic game. I love it. Just
yeah.
and interestingly, about a year ago, I was having I think I was doing a live stream of some sort, and I was playing Berserk, and then somebody asked me, "Oh, can you play Berserk Redux on the Commodore 64?" Which I was aware of, and it's a good game, but it's not Berserk. And thought, "Oh, it's a brilliant version of Berserk." No, it's not. It's actually a shit. It's nothing like the arcade. The map's all wrong.
Right.
Everything about it, the way it works, it's a good game, but it's not Berserk. And I said the definitive version of Berserk was I'd been talking to Steve Snake. He was on my channel, and
Yeah.
I was telling him how much I love Berserk. And then a couple of months later, he emailed me. He says, "Oh, I've sent you something. Have a look at it." And what is it? And it was a thing called Horus and the Robots. Have you played it?
Hmm. Yeah.
It is
It's
it is.
phenomenal.
It is absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if you thing with the color speech synthesis, it's even got the sound.
Mm.
It's just brilliant. And
Yeah.
so anyway, that was that. So I got in a debate with. So I says, no, the definitive version is Horus and the Robots. I says it's apart from the sprite, obviously not being the wee running guy, it's Horus. It is utterly sublime. And one of the guys, a guy called Nick Sherman, Arlasoft, he just took up programming about 3-4 years ago, and he he'll put out an arcade port in like 3 weeks, and it's fucking
Wow.
perfect. So we were having a debate, and he said, "Oh, maybe I'll give." I said, "I there's the version of Berserk in the Commodore 64 is crap." He says, "I'll try and write it," and I says, "Well, if you can write a better version than Horus and the Robots, I will eat that hat." He went, "Right, okay." And then he sent me a beta about 2 weeks later, and I thought, "Fuck, I better get the salt and pepper raked out." Uh, and he has now done the definitive version of on the Commodore 64. It's as good as Horus and the Robots.
Really?
It's absolutely. You'll
Wow.
need. I can send it across to you. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, chuck
And
us a link. Yeah.
he's even got the speech. He's even got the speech. It's scratchy as hell because it's a single load. Um, but
Yeah.
he put that out, and it's just I would guarantee if I was to show you a video of that running, and as we were talking, and I said, "Yeah, that's arcade," you'd probably, apart from the speech, you'd probably think, "Yeah, that's arcade." Until you realize, oh, it's not.
Right.
That's actually a Commodore 64 version. That's phenomenal. He's subsequently
Amazing.
done other. He's done the definitive Galaxian, Galaga, and then for the live stream, the 12-hour charity thing that we did last year, he he had a chat, and he says, "Oh, what game could I write? I want to write a game and sell it, and the money will go to charity." So he wrote Burger Time, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I got to play it like live on the charity. That was like the first time anyone had played it, and it's ridiculous how good the coder this guy is. He just knocks out these arcade
Crazy.
conversions like that's perfect. You can't better it. You know, even the sound effects, everything, just absolutely sublime. But anyway, we're going off topic. Berserk, absolute Stonewall classic. Yeah, great
Yeah,
choice. Yeah, and you'll never beat it.
yeah,
It's one of these games that you can just keep trying to better your score.
exactly. That's what it's about. Yeah,
Phenomenal,
love it.
excellent. Right, game number 3, Squire.
So game number 3 is on the Atari ST. I wasn't sure that there were two ST games that I was going to pick from. Um, it was either between Interphase or Damocles. I don't know if you know either of those.
Paul Wokes.
Paul
Yeah, I
Wokes,
didn't
yeah,
play them, but I am
Damocles.
I'm aware of them. Yeah, yeah.
So I think I'm going to pick Damocles because it's one of the first kind of open world games. Okay, there's like a plot that you have to follow. You've got to stop this comet hitting the planet. But it's phenomenal how much he fitted into. I don't know how many like little islands and little planets you have to go to, but it's a very open world kind of game. And I was gonna pick. I wanted something that would have some kind of longevity because presumably I'm on this island for
Yeah,
like
until you
40 or
kick the
50
bucket. Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Bucket. So yeah, again, Damocles is one of those kind of ones where if you were to kind of play it, you'd need like a walkthrough in a magazine or something. It's kind of one of those kind of classic ones where you kind of wait a couple of months after it came out for ST format to print the walkthrough because you didn't really have kind of much of a clue as to what you were
Yeah.
doing. But yeah, it was a very immersive. I'm not particularly into sort of like massively multiplayer online games or like really kind of immersive stuff like that. But it's the kind of game that I could feel like I could wander around and not really do very much. Just kind of like stealing spacecraft here and there and flying around and just having a little poke around different
Was
buildings
that
and
not
stuff as you
the?
come
It was
across
kind of
them.
like the spiritual successor to Mercenary, wasn't it?
It was the
Yeah,
sequel to
yeah.
Mercy. Yeah, yeah. It was. I don't know whether you were the same guy. You had the same computer.
Oh, yeah,
Benson,
yeah.
the little
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So you had Benson. So I think it is the
Mm-hmm.
sequel
But it
to
had, was
Mercenary,
it
which
filled
is
in? I don't think it came out in the 8 bits. It was the ST and the Amiga, wasn't it?
ST and
Yeah,
Amiga. Yeah, so it was all like filled polygons and stuff,
yeah.
and really really decent frame rate and stuff for the
And
time.
would you
Considering the platform.
particularly go for the Atari ST one?
I probably would because the frame rate I think is a little bit better than the Amiga version, although the sound effects in the Amiga are a little less irritating because the little Benson computer has that sort of like do kind of sound when it's talking to you like character by character, which would get a little bit grating. But I guess you could always turn the sound down. It's
So
not
what?
vital
How
to.
how did the game work? I mean, was it kind of like an elite type game? Did you like fly to space stations and kill stuff and trade and what?
Nah, it was more. You didn't kind of have any sort of trading or anything like that. You would just. In some ways, it was kind of linear. You could kind of let the game guide you to you got to go to this location and pick up this item here, and then receive these instructions, and then that tells you the next location you've got to go to. But you could completely ignore that. You could either choose to. I don't know if this is Damocles or the third game, but you could either choose to side with there was like a dictator or something, and you could choose to side with them or try and beat them. So you kind of had some sway as to what your character was doing and what your character would become. But yeah, no, it wasn't like a trading game or anything where you just like flying from planet to planet and going back again and kind of grinding it to try and get more
Yeah,
credits or
yeah.
anything. It did have a plot and did
And
have a
did you ever
storyline.
complete it? Was it a game you completed? No,
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 never
no.
completed it. Never got very far with it at all because I only played it. I kind of played it when I was 12, and haven't really touched it
Yeah.
since.
Now you
So,
got a great selection of
but it's
games there.
one of those
Obviously,
ones.
you've got your just want to escape being stuck in whatever that you're stuck in, and you've got outrun music. The beach, bikini clad
Yeah,
blondes at the side of the thing, etc., etc. Yeah, and then you've got your obviously Berserk for hardcore gaming thrills, and then you've got Damocles for a kind of longevity. What I love
Yeah.
about doing these podcasts is, I mean, this is number 15, so I've got 3 times 15, 45. I've now got 45 games that I could maybe when I get to podcast number whatever it's going to be, I could basically say this is the 100 best video games ever. That's chosen by 50
Right.
people.
Yeah.
It's and what's interesting as well is some people you think is going to choose something different. I mean, Sick Boy, his favorite game is the latest Zelda. That was his. And I thought he
Really?
was going to go for something like Defender or whatever. I think Mr. Temple. I think he chose. Did he not choose? I think he chose the one of the Zelda games as well on the Switch. So
It's
yeah,
interesting because Zelda was going to be one of my games, not necessarily games that shouldn't have never seen the light of day or anything like that, because I know that people really are in their element and are thrilled to bits whenever a Zelda game comes out. I have tried so hard to play like the NES Zelda, the SNES Zelda, the first N64 Zelda. I've tried like RPGs in general, like Chrono Trigger, Earthbound and stuff, and I really do try. I get like halfway
yeah.
through, and then I just get bored, or I get lost, or I've forgotten the story, or
Well,
I
it's
just never got on with them.
interesting. Like I'm sure the very game that Tony Temple picked has been one of the nasty games picked with somebody else. So it just goes to show horses for courses, whatever it is, eh?
Right? Yeah.
So excellent. Right now we're going to. Sorry for having to drag things down a wee bit. You've had your fun with the 3 great games. Now is your opportunity to give me 3 games that you just didn't like. It should never have been written because it went on to inspire other things. I mean, somebody even picked Doom because it kicked off the whole online play thing, which he didn't like.
Right.
So, yeah, for whatever reason, I'm sure Tony Temple also picked one that he completed it. He spent 45 quid, and I don't want to give any spoilers. He spent £45 in this game for the SNES, and he completed it within half an hour. And he went, really?
Right.
So, yeah, the floor is
um,
yours, Squire. 3 games which you can banish into the pits of hell.
right. So, funnily enough, my first game is a SNES game, and yeah, back in the day when I started out with an Atari ST, or all your games came from like copy discs in the playground. You didn't really have to spend much money at all to pick up games. But when things like the SNES and the Mega Drive came along, it was like that was a 40
Yeah.
quid commitment to get something. And yeah, I remembered it was. I got a SNES when I was about 14 or something, and I went into WH Smith's to pick a game, and I was literally there just all afternoon agonizing, like what am I going to pick up? And I kind of overlooked Mario All Stars because I'm like, oh, I've already played Mario on the Game Boy, and Mario's Mario, whatever. And the game that I picked after like 2 or 3 hours of like standing in front of this shelf was a game called The Adventures of Dr. Franken, which is like it's just an incredibly generic platformer. You're Frankenstein's monster, but in like Hawaiian shirt and like Bermuda shorts and flip flops. It's just like they've tried to kind of cool him up, and yeah, you've got to go and collect batteries. It's like a side-scrolling platformer. Got to go back and forth, and then you got to find the exit and that kind of thing. But I was quite easily riled up as a gamer when I was a kid. I would get frustrated very, very easily and very, very quickly. And the annoying thing with Dr. Franken is when you died, your sprite would turn to face the screen and go like that. And I just felt so stupid and awful that the fucking character in the
Mocking you.
game was telling me that I was shit. What I was just trying to like go and it wasn't a very inventive platformer. The music was okay. The graphics were fine. It wasn't an attractive game or an awful sounding game, but it was just very like insipid. Just and I felt that so much more because I'd spent £40 on this
Yeah.
thing. So you felt you kind of had to push forward and go with it.
The irony being that, like I said, in fact, I was doing a podcast with doing this very one with another person on what day was it? Friday, I think it was. And I said, if you bought I don't know, if you bought a pair of shoes and weren't fitting properly, or you bought a £20 keyboard out of Lidl and it wasn't quite right, you take it back and get your money back. But back, you'd never even contemplate taking a video game back. Whereas
Yeah,
in theory, you
that's
say,
it.
well, this is crap. It's not good. It's a poor product. So yeah, did you play it for long, or did you just get resigned to the sort of bin of shame?
It got shelved pretty quickly. Yeah, I went back to F-Zero and Mario
I've
Kart very
heard of
soon
the
after
game.
that.
I've
So yeah,
never played it. I mean, I'm familiar with the title, but I've never played it. Thankfully, who made it? Who developed it?
I think it's a company called Motive Time. I'm not quite sure. They also they did a version of it for the Game Boy. There was a Game Boy version of Dr. Franken, which was a completely different game. They hadn't like tried to Game Boyize the SNES version. They just had to make a completely different game, and that, if I remember correctly, was pretty good. The Game Boy version of Dr. Franken was all right,
That's
but
it.
the SNES
That was the
version was.
problem with the SNES and the Mega Drive. It was just there was a slew of these cutesy platform type games. You collect gems and get to the next level, and yeah, it sounds to me like that was one of them. So did you just look at the screenshots? I take it you hadn't done your research. You hadn't looked at like Mean Machines or anything
Hadn't
at
done any
all. No,
homework.
no.
Hadn't read the latest issue of Nintendo Magazine System and kind of had it recommended. Yeah, I think I must have just got. I was like hoodwinked by the cool character in the shades and the shorts. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be all right. It wasn't.
Pile of shite.
Pretty
Yeah. So
bad.
how long did you play it all in? You think?
I probably put like maybe like a few hours a day for like a
Yeah.
week or two, and like every now and again I'd probably fire it up in the hope that I'd been missing out on something the first time round. But yeah, no, we really didn't get a lot of time in the cartridge slot. I have to say.
Yeah, and that was you. That was you for another month. Well, probably. What age would you be
Yeah,
at that point?
I was about
So you
14, so I had like a Saturday job and stuff. But yeah,
presumably it was another couple of months
it was a
before you could
real.
buy a decent game, then, eh?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't even think I did buy any more SNES games. I was going to burn the SNES that I had came with like F-Zero, Star Wing, and Mario Kart, and I think I just kind of, other than like borrowing a few games off people, I borrowed Flashback for it and stuff like that, which was a great game. Yeah, otherwise I think the SNES kind of sadly didn't really get much of a look in based on my early
Right,
experience.
we'll stop dwelling in the pain. That's game number one of the bin of shame. What would game number two be?
So game number two is probably more controversial than anything really, because it's a gorgeous game. Everybody loves it, but I've never been able to get on with it. And that game is Shadow of the Colossus.
That's just
The
make the listeners. Was that a PlayStation 3 type game? Is that or something?
It was PlayStation 2
PlayStation
originally.
2. Yeah.
I think there has been a remake for the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4. Um, largely kind of not really changing the game very much, just kind of making it higher resolution and better frame rate and stuff. But I really liked Eco or Ico, which is the same studio's
Played
first
that one.
game.
You start off, you got to escape from this kind of tower thing. Eh?
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah. And then the game is you've got this like there's this kind of ghostly princess, and you've got to hold her hand and lead her to different places and stuff. And that's just a lovely game. That's a wonderful game. But I think like with Shadow of the Colossus, the idea is basically it's like I think there's 12 beasts that you have to fight. So it's kind of basically a boss fight game. So you've got to find these beasts, and they're kind of made out of moss and stone, and it really has a very good impression of weight behind them. They do feel like they're massive, kind of stomping across the landscape and that kind of thing. But you have to go and find them. So there's this whole thing of like you're on this horse and you've got this sword, and you've got to go across a landscape and then hold a sword up to the sun, and then that shows you what direction you've got to go into, and then you got to go there and then see if you can find the beast. And for me, that's just really artificially lengthening the game. Why not just have like I kind of get it. People probably would want to go exploring and finding these things, but to me, it's just like this half of the game is just going from one place to another, and then having these. I think I've maybe got to like the third or the fourth beast every time I've played it, but other than that, it just gets really frustrating, and I just don't know where. On each beast, you've got to like stab them with your sword on these like glowing points on the screen, but you've got to like they're kind of trying to move and trying to throw you off, and you've got to like hold one button whilst you're trying to stab them, and I can never really. It never feels like intuitive to me. All very nice.
So is that a sandbox type game, or is it more just because what was it? What's the game? Is it Dark Souls, which is like regarded as one of the most difficult games? It's just constant boss fights, and it's like really hard.
Yeah, I think it is. It is sandbox. Like all of the bosses are all always in the same spot. So as long if you know which direction to go, if you found them before, then head in the same direction the next time you're playing it, and you'll find them. So it's sandboxed in that way. It's very linear, but you just have to take it's linear, but you have to take a very circuitous route to get to where you need to go, which doesn't really work for me. I wasn't really a fan of the follow up to that one called The Last Guardian, which you're like this little kid, and there's this like big cat bird type character.
Again, I've not played it. I've seen,
Yeah, again, it's beautiful. It's a lovely game, but you have to, you've got to kind of tell this big animal like where to go, and like it kind of goes somewhere, and you can like jump on its back to get to other things. But it's really, really clunky. I think it is actually kind of, that's not just me saying that. I think it's kind of known for being quite clunky, and like the camera, you're fighting the camera like half the time and stuff like that. Which and I played that as well, and that never really. Probably hated that even more than Shadow of the Colossus. Actually,
yeah. That's the problem. That's the problem I find with modern games now is they just try and pad it out way too much with like needless things, as you say, like having to hold a sword up to tell you where to go and all that kind of thing. And yeah. Compared with something like Berserk, up, down, left, right, fire. You know exactly what you're doing.
You know where you're at.
Was it?
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where I feel like I'm fighting the game more than I'm fighting the bosses. That kind of, there are sort of stumbling blocks that don't really need to be there. But other people love it, so I'm not saying it's an awful game. I actually would really like to be able to enjoy it and love it, but I don't.
And would you ever go back to it, or have you kind of had your fill with it?
I might do. I've got it for the PS4, so who knows? Yeah, it's not one of those kind of like, I'm never ever going to touch this game again. Just each time I've tried, I've never had a particularly good time with it.
I was actually talking to the guys at work. What were we talking about? We're talking about a video game of some sort. Have you ever noticed sometimes if you're playing a game, I don't have long gaming sessions anymore, but if I'm maybe playing a game, the game I'm playing at the moment is Last of Us 2, you can get to a bit where you're looking, you're trying to find where do I go now, and you're looking, I can't get past it, don't know what I'm doing. Give up, or else you'll maybe play another game where you're trying to kill something and you just give up. You've played it, you give up, and then you put it on the next day or 2 days later, and you instantly, I'm going over there. There's a window, I didn't see that before. Or you instantly kill the baddie on your first go. It's like, how did that work?
Yeah. Yeah, it just you kind of sleep on it and it becomes more obvious, doesn't it?
That's a weird one. So anyway, as you say, that game, what was it, Shadow of the Colossus? Was that the game you picked? Yeah.
That's right.
I've seen it. It's all very kind of grey and white, isn't it? Sort of.
Yeah, it's very like the everything's kind of got quite a bloomy sort of lighting effect on it and stuff. It's very kind of effects based.
It's almost like a game that would have got 10 out of 10 in Edge magazine.
Right.
I would imagine so. It's a game they would love.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine.
All right, wonderful. Right, your very last game of shame. What would it be and why?
So the very last game of shame is when I had an Atari ST. I had my mum said, "Okay, yeah, you can have this. You can have this Atari ST." She sent me and my dad into town to get one, and she was like, "Just make sure it doesn't come with a load of games. I don't want him to play games. Just want to have a computer that he can do his homework on and all this sort of stuff and learn programming and stuff." And at the time, the Atari ST had the Power Pack, which was it was a big pack with like 20 games. So there was no option to go into town and pick up an SD without any games. So came home and she wasn't livid, but it was kind of like, oh my god, this computer's got tons of games. And it was quite a nice selection actually. There were lots of arcade games in there that had like the holy Sega Trinity. It had Outrun, Super Hang On, and Space Harrier
right, yeah,
in
yeah.
there. Bomb Jack, that kind of thing. So a really, really nice selection of games. But there was one in there. Now, I've never, ever been a flight simulator type person. I was once given a copy of Flight of the Intruder, and it was a really, really thick, like, spiral bound manual that,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is like I have to read an entire book just to know how to play the game. But in this power pack, there was a game called Super Huey, and it was a helicopter simulator, and I couldn't even get off the ground. I had like the instructions in front of me, and I just couldn't even figure out how to make this bloody thing like get in the air. And everything that every time I've looked this game up, every time I've gone onto like YouTube or forums or something like that, every single person, I don't know whether the game was broken. It could have just like never worked, but I don't think anyone knows how to play it. It's dreadful. And
I can
it's
talk
not
from
even like a nice
experience.
practice.
I actually bought that game for the Commodore 64. It was programmed by Paul Norman, who did Forbidden Forest and Aztec Challenge on the 8 bits.
Oh right,
Yeah,
okay.
and he also went on to do is it Beyond the Forbidden Forest. And the thing is, Super Huey actually spawned a sequel as well. It got a it didn't get a gold medal. It got well, it might have got a gold medal. I don't remember. But it was certainly thought of very highly on the Commodore 64. And like yourself, when I bought the game, I mean, I'm like, holy shit! I can now fly a helicopter on my computer. I'm going to buy it, and Zap thought it was great. And I bought it, and I quite literally didn't have a clue what I was doing. I gave up. I've subsequently revisited it, and I've been able to work, get it taken off. Yeah, I mean you've got to. I think you've got to press something like P to power on the engine, or the lights
Right.
come on, and then you do engine, and then you do like I don't know whatever it is, the plus key, and you hear the rotors turning, and then you're able to fly. So I did actually manage to kind of get it working, but yeah,
Oh, well
yeah,
done.
yeah. You'll need to watch a video that I've done of it. I've never tried it. So it was Atari ST in particular. Was that the version?
It was the ST
Right.
version,
I'll
yeah.
need to.
Yeah.
I'll just write that down. I'm going to make a video of that. I'll give that a go. Super Huey on the Atari ST. Okay, so you quite literally just could not get the bloody thing to take off.
Just couldn't figure it out at all. Yeah, I didn't really, and it's not even like it looked particularly good. I couldn't really figure out what I was meant to. I mean, you don't fight anything in that game, do you? You just like
No,
fly from one
I
place to
think
another, or
I've never got sort of that deep into the game. I think there is versions where you can like I don't know, do you shoot like collect balloons or something? I don't know exactly, or rescue hostages. I don't really know. It was quite a kind of basic game, especially on the
yeah,
C64. But I think the whole point of it was you're flying a helicopter. There's
right.
probably a
And that was
reason
it.
that helicopter simulators never really, no pun intended, folks, never really took off. See what I did there? Quite literally never took off, especially when you were playing them. Although there was Gunship. Gunship was that was quite
Oh,
aye,
that always looked good. Never played that, but I
yeah.
do remember Gunship
So
2000. I think.
you
Yeah,
quite literally could not play the game. So you bought it. Well, you didn't.
I couldn't play the
Yeah.
game, and I couldn't kind of didn't seem to me as though there was any compelling reason to learn because the graphics didn't look particularly good. Couldn't really understand what I was, even if I had taken off, where was I meant to go? Was I meant to kind of like fly somewhere and pick up an item and take it somewhere else, or am I literally just flying around, maybe collecting fuel every now and again
Yeah.
and
When
trying
was
to
the
land?
last
I
time
don't
you
know.
actually played it?
Oh, I probably have like tried it in the past 10 years just as a
You still
curiosity,
not
but
managed it.
still not managed it.
Well,
No.
I don't know.
I might have another go. Maybe when I've got like pissed off with Shadow of the Colossus for the eighth
I don't
time.
know what the chances if somebody like yourself who's extremely technical and clever. I don't know what the chances of me. Though I have got the experience of been able to pilot the C64 one, so that might stand me in good stead. You never know. I'm going to give it a go. So yeah, that game is completely broken. The Shadow of the Colossus was just dull. Dull and boring. And what was your first game again? I can't remember what that was.
Dr. Franken. It was just pure
complete pile of wank. Yeah, 45
Yeah.
quid you're never going to get back again.
Exactly.
Listen, Jamie, it's been an absolute blast. I do apologise for dragging. It's gone on quite a bit longer than I said it was going to go.
Oh, not at all. That's
You're
fine.
always welcome on the channel. Anytime you want to come on just for a chin wag, I always enjoy these. Like I says, hopefully it's not going to be, I'm not going to be 64 years old the next time I get you on the channel. I might not even be here at that point.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, listen, mate, thank you very much for taking the time out. I'm sure all the listeners really enjoyed listening to you. And until next time, mate, you take care and I'll see you soon.